The Lemonade Car Show is sponsored by OMVIC, Ontario's vehicle sales regulator. Welcome to the Lemonade Car Show, brought to you by OMVIC, Crown and Sound Insurance. I'm your host, Lorraine Sommerfeld. I'm joined today by Michael Turk. He's the lawyer for the APA, and George Iny is the president of the APA. Gentlemen, this is one of my favorite shows because we get to just hand all the legal problems over to Michael, and then he can lawyer them, which is always fun.
It's always exciting.
It's always fun. We just spoke briefly before we came on air, and I said, are problems increasing? Are people getting, is there big changes in the legal industry as far as it relates to the car industry? You said nothing changed.
No, right. Other than technology is becoming more of a problem.
Yeah.
So as the vehicles become more problematic, or as they become more technical, they become more problematic, and it's more frustrating for the consumers.
Are manufacturers stepping up to the plate, do you think? And George, you can speak to this as well. They are more complicated, and it's sometimes it's user error, but frequently it's just that they're not ready for production yet and they're going out there. Are the manufacturers backing up their product, or are they kind of waffling?
Well, the warranties are good in the sense that it's an all-you-can-eat buffet for car repairs. But when the vehicle becomes unrepairable, the car makers run, and that's really terrible. It's one of the few products you buy that if it's really badly defective, they don't ever want to see it back. And even more than before, they're leaving the dealer sort of in the middle to try and stonewall you, and they're not supporting the dealer to take the vehicle back if it's defective. So we have one program that's supposed to help, it's CAMVAP, but if you look, it's not really a very widely used program, and a very small number of vehicles are actually repurchased.
Taken back through.
Yeah, so it's a concern for us, going forward, as Michael said, as the cars are becoming more, there's sometimes, now we're seeing these technical, like transient issues, like an intermittent stalling that you can't reproduce when it goes to the dealer, or many different phantom problems. Chrysler had that with some models. And we would like people to have wish car makers would just agree to say, okay, we'll give you another one, or we'll give you your money back and you can start afresh.
Oh, that would be wonderful, but most people want their money back no matter what.
No, I don't know that everybody's unreasonable. I think
I don't think they're unreasonable, but your problem is the biggest problem you have.
For the individual, yes.
So it becomes, and that's so much money, it can become overwhelming. I think we've got lots of questions, so I'm going to go right to questions for Michael.
I have a question about odometer readings and who's responsible for any changes. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to guess that the odometer reading that he's referring to, there's been a discrepancy or a problem. So let's go from that assumption that he's got a car. So first off, George, where do you want to?
Well, the odometer is a measurement device, and that's covered under our weights and measurement legislation, which is federal in Canada. Okay. If you're spinning odometers, so there's no problem with the odometer record, that would be an issue that would concern your seller. So it's two different tracks. The federal one would be, for example, it does occasionally come up that a vehicle is counting a little fast. Mm-hmm. People now have GPS in their vehicles, so they can pretty quickly see when the two numbers aren't the same. And in theory, there could be liability for a car maker if they were off on that.
Okay. Would this be interrupted, though, by tire sizes and things like that? Stuff does play into that.
Right, so
it could be...
It would have to be a brand new tires that you took delivery of the vehicle with.
Yes. Okay.
And not an optional wheel and tire package.
Okay.
Michael, did you want to add a little bit on that too?
Well, that's a really tough one to prove. I mean, you have to have your measurements precise. Your driving habits have to be precise. And it might just be unique to your particular vehicle, mm-hmm. rather than to the model line itself.
If you're consistently off by 3 or 4 or 5%, certainly 4 or 5% is actionable. I mean, Honda was caught at some point, and it has a lot of implications. Your warranty could end 4,000 or 5,000 kilometers early. Mm-hmm. If you're paying lease penalties, those would kick in. They'd be a little bit higher, and so the car maker should remediate, should help you out in those cases. Okay. And Michael is right. Most of the time, they're going to tell you you don't know what you're talking about.
Let me extend the question a little bit. If you've bought a car, maybe a used car, you believe it has 1 kilometer reading that it's showing, and then you have reason to believe it's been rolled back or altered, what's your recourse then?
First of all, it's very common, especially once we went to digital dashboards, So that the way to roll back an odometer is now done through a laptop rather than manually in the past. So the only way you're going to actually be able to determine truly the mileage is you're going to have to get all the previous records and show when the service was done and the service history and the previous ownership, and try to match it together. But as George mentioned before, it's the liability of the seller. Hopefully you've bought the car from a dealer, so you can go back to the dealer. If it was a private sale, it's probably good luck finding the previous owner.
Okay, and when I renew my insurance every year, I have to put an odometer reading down. So my CarProof or whatever is going to show odometer readings.
There are sometimes
from
errors
service.
because a person didn't want to go back to the car. You know,
I
when
kind
they
of
were
ballpark it.
Yeah, that can create a havoc later
Okay.
down the road. Usually I would imagine the person who is altering an odometer, spinning an odometer, will probably check themselves to see what the last known record is.
So they'll try not to be too stupid.
And they're also becoming more sophisticated in the sense that they're going to do a reasonable rollback now, as opposed to one that's going to flag that the mileage is low.
So they're going to keep it within parameters. Okay, we'll be right back after this break with more Lemonade Car Show. The Lemonade Car Show is sponsored by OMVIC, Ontario's vehicle sales regulator. The Lemonade Car Show is sponsored by OMVIC, Ontario's vehicle sales regulator. Welcome back to the Lemonade Car Show, brought to you by OMVIC, Crown and Sound Insurance. I'm joined today by Michael Turk. He's a lawyer with the APA, and George Iny is the president of the APA. We're going to go right to questions for Michael.
It's not a car problem, but in a way it's a car problem. We got two vehicles, two Ford Escapes, and my wife's got diagnosed with dementia like 2 years ago, and we're still paying on her car, and I'm paying the insurance on it. I just wondering how can we get out of it?
Okay, first, I'm sorry about the diagnosis, Larry. That is a drag that's happening more frequently, I think, as our population ages. He mentioned two cars and the insurance policy. I'm thinking get rid of a car. Am I too simplistic in what I'm...
No, that's the straightforward answer.
Okay.
You're making payments for two vehicles, you can only use one. And unfortunately, depending on where they are on their payments, they might lose money. But that's the only thing you can do. Or try to find somebody to take over your lease payments or your finance payments, depending on what the case is.
Okay, he was talking about insurance as well. And what I'm wondering is if your wife is not, if she's excluded from driving now, like if she's not allowed to because of this diagnosis, then she doesn't have to be covered.
You still
as
want
a
coverage
driver.
you still want coverage on the vehicle though, because it's in your possession.
Yes, but
You can take
when
off
they-
a driver, but it probably won't change the premium.
okay, but if
The
he
issue
gets
is
rid
if
of
you want to sell it privately, the
Yes.
thing has to be drivable. It can't just be insured for fire and theft, for example.
okay,
And the vehicle is going to be deteriorating when it's sitting there without a driver.
okay, because what they're doing, they're probably looking at two primary drivers, two vehicles. So he's got to tell the insurance company, even in the interim.
Yeah,
They
might
can
be-
remove
you
her
might
as a
be able
primary
to drop
driver.
the premium a little.
No, but the other thing though is that the insurance company is only going to give a certain period of time that they will insure a vehicle that doesn't have a driver.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, they'll cancel the coverage after 1 year.
Oh, okay.
Michael, are there any situations where a person who is diagnosed with dementia might be able to unravel a deal, or if they were induced to sign and had only a sketchy understanding?
I mean, yes, George, but that's a whole different, situation. If it's we've had situations in the past where a consumer has gone in to buy a vehicle and didn't have the mental capacity to purchase that vehicle. They've gone back home. They've shared the experience with their children, and the children basically go ballistic. I can't believe that somebody sold my father or mother a car
Yeah.
when they weren't capable of doing that. That's unfortunately, sometimes the dealerships don't even know that the person doesn't have the capacity because they present themselves well. All you can do is go back to the dealership and try to negotiate or reason with them.
Reason.
And likewise, with this caller, I would say the same thing: is contact the car
Well,
dealership.
that's 2 years ago, so it's a little different.
Yeah.
I mean,
No, but even now they might be able to take the vehicle back, maybe even try to get somebody to take over the payments for you. The other thing, I don't think insurance companies have come up with this yet, but I think it would be an excellent product to offer, and that is some sort of disability insurance on a car loan or on a car lease for the elderly, because it's very common now that somebody might have a 3, 4, 5, 6-year loan, and at the beginning they're fine, but they might not make it through.
I have to say, it always gets my back up when I see dealers leasing to older people. They never need the annual mileage in the lease. So for the dealer, that's going to be
Have a new car out there.
right. In 4 years, they're going to get the vehicle back with 30,000 K on it. And if that person doesn't pass their driving license test exam, or if for some reason they have a health problem, a lease is much harder to get out of. So
But the pitch
you don't need to change often when you're older. You actually should stay for a longer period with the vehicle you have.
I was on the other side of a cubicle one time listening to the pitch to an older couple for the lease, and it was like, you'll never have to worry about anything. You get a new car all the time. It's exactly what you need. You don't have to bother with anything. And I'm thinking, that car's pretty much bulletproof for the first 3 or 4 years anyway. Like, what is the, and as you said, they put 12 kilometers a year on it. And they're thinking, okay, this, no problems.
But what's interesting is the other side of the equation is, because I've had this conversation with some elderly clients, and I was giving them a hard time. Somebody who's 85, I said, what are you doing signing a 4-year lease? And they basically, their answer back to me was, I haven't passed away yet, and I still want to be able to drive a nice car.
So I'll live what I want.
Yeah.
Without committing this big chunk of.
Right. I'd rather.
Well, if you know that,
Yep.
and you have the money for it, all the more power to you.
That's good. Okay. Let's queue up another question.
In Ontario, with the OPP, it is illegal to have a photocopy of your insurance slip in your vehicle. He will not accept it. I was fined for that, for not producing the original. I had a photocopy.
I actually wrote about this a few weeks ago, so I'm very current on what you're allowed to do and not do, because I call the cops and talk to them. You're allowed to have a photocopy of your ownership, but make sure it's both sides that have the stickers that you get and you put on them. Your insurance slip, yeah, you have to have the original. My insurance company sends me 47 little pink slips every year. I swear, there's so many. And we're just moving into electronic. More people, IBC has a poll, IBC, Insurance Bureau of Canada, people want electronic. They want to email to re-up. They want on their phone to have their pink slip. But you want to know what's holding that up? Is they need a law that a cop can't go through your phone and look at anything else when they're looking at the pink slip. So that's the stumbling block for being able to keep it like you have your points card or your credit card.
I'd rather have my printed copy.
Well,
take that chance with my phone.
You do have to have it. But before you, especially if somebody else takes your car out or your kids are learning how to drive, show them where the stuff is in the glove box. Show them how to access it when they're not freaking out with a cop rapping on the window when it happens. But I think you've always had to have the original of your pink slip. Yeah?
I can tell you there are times when you're doing transfers of vehicles that you might not have the original.
Okay.
So when you're changing cars, I can tell you for a fact that when you go and pick up a new car and you're changing ownership and you're changing the insurance on that, you're not going to have the original in your possession when
No,
you go
you're
and
going to
pick
have the
up.
one they sent through on the
Right.
printer.
Right.
That's true.
Okay. And there's going to be that gap between when you, they will fax it or email confirmation of insurance
Before you get
to the dealership before they will release the car, but you don't have your new insurance certificate yet. You'll have an email version of it, but you won't have the paper copy.
Okay. I also remember my son, when he was 16 and knew everything, telling me, oh no, you have 24 hours to produce your driver's license. No, you don't. Discretion of the police, but you have to have it on you at all times if you're driving. And so I told my son, so yeah, lots of things you should check before you head out in the car, and photocopies are one of them. We'll be back after this break with more Lemonade Car Show. The Lemonade Car Show is sponsored by OMVIC, Ontario's vehicle sales regulator. The Lemonade Car Show is sponsored by OMVIC, Ontario's vehicle sales regulator. Welcome back to the Lemonade Car Show. I'm your host, Lorraine Sommerfeld. We're joined now by Chris Muir for a double-packed episode of Ask the Mechanic. Georgini, we have a little bit of housekeeping first, though. My favorite reading material. Yes, we're pushing this book because everybody needs to have this book in their house.
Well, if you're going to buy a used car, this is unique. It has all the strong and weak points for all the used cars. It has reviews on new vehicles as well as tips. And unique manufacturer warranty extensions, which are quite hard to find. So they're in the book. So it's got more than 650 pages, and you can either buy it as a hard copy, it's about $32, or it's free in almost all municipal lending libraries because they have it. And you can get it online for about half that.
And I got to tell you, the language in this book is so bare bones. It is so abrupt. I love it because it'll say, "Don't buy this car," and this is why, or it'll say, "Buy this one instead," or "Don't do it." It's so obviously not on the hook to any manufacturer, which is what I love about it.
Kind of the Lemonade Guide has that reputation already from the
Blunt.
original,
Yes.
Phil Edmiston,
Yeah.
Blunt. And the last couple of years, we've been able to add some of our own information to sort of complete the guide. So it looks the same as the old one, but it has a lot of on-the-ground information that we're able to get because of working with people like Chris or going out and shopping cars. So we actually have some of the crooked car ads. We show you how to interpret them.
And plus, it's just fun. It's just fun to. What I like is anyone that comes in my house, whatever they drive, I go, okay, let's look at it. And that's an after the fact kind of thing. Okay, we can move along from that now. We're going to go right to questions for our mechanic.
Yeah, hi. I'm watching, and you guys are talking about the crown rust proofing. I bought a car, and it has some module that's plugged in that apparently stops the car from rusting. I'm wondering if that is good.
Hey, I'll start. It's garbage. Sorry, I'm going to get in trouble for that, aren't I? In my opinion. No, they don't work. Who wants to take this first? We love this one.
I'm going to throw my hat into the ring. They're voodoo. They're fake. They don't work. The idea behind it is it electrifies the body of the car, and the moving electrons prevent rust from forming, but moving electrons come from anything electrical in the car, be it the keep alive memory in the radio, be it the keep alive memory in all of the ECUs. On a ship they work because it's immersed into a saline solution, the ocean water, and they have what they call a sacrificial anode. It's a big plate of zinc that actually corrodes before the hull of the ship. That science is proven. On a motor vehicle that's isolated from the road, from being grounded, it doesn't work. It cannot physically work.
Why are
It's
they allowed
one
to
of the
still
big-
sell this?
It's one of the bigger money grabs in dealerships. Among the different rust prevention strategies that dealers promote, this is the one that costs the most. So we've seen it priced anywhere from $795 to
$2,000, I've heard.
yes, $1,800
Yes,
out
I've
west.
heard
It's
that.
more in Calgary
Yeah.
than anywhere else in Canada.
And I get photos sent to me. You sent me some, but mechanics will send me photos of this module all surrounded by rust.
Yep.
The bracket it's been put on with has rusted.
Yes.
Yet we still get, I don't know how many calls every season. Tons of calls about this.
Well,
I don't know
shame
why
on
they're
the car dealers too.
it's-
I know the Competition Bureau is responsible for claims relating to that, but they're completely asleep when it comes to automobile retailing. We've spoken to them occasionally in the past. They're just totally not present, and that's why these things get out of hand like that.
Well, the other thing I think is people in the media and everyone else, we're all worried about hurting people's feelings or saying, okay, this might not be for you, but do your research. That thing just flat out is
A lie.
a scam. And I'll say it. I mean, come after me, you're not going to get much. I mean, it's my boot collection. But, still, I hate that they can still sell these to people because it sounds like this. And at the dealership level, it's real easy to put this little box of whatever is in it.
Oh, it's
on the
much easier
side.
than applying real
Than actually-
rust retardant
Yeah.
on the
Yeah.
vehicle. It's
Certainly
not
is.
messy. You don't have
Yeah.
to put a person underneath spraying the vehicle.
It applies
Yeah.
with two-sided tape.
Yeah, two-sided tape. So if people watching the show come away with nothing else, don't get roped into buying things that don't have any scientific backing, and don't believe this. So I'll say it flat out: don't buy those modules. Don't pay for them. They don't work. If you have one, start getting it crowned or another form of a drip oil because you're going to need the protection.
The one thing that may have value with your module is the warranty. So do look. Some of them do offer a form of lifetime coverage where they'll pay for repairs. They're counting on you to have lost the paperwork or have sold the car by the time that day arrives. But if you are one of those people that does keep your vehicles a long time,
Keep the paperwork.
there may be a claim possible under
Oh.
the warranty.
All right, we'll be right back after this message for more Lemonade Car Show. The Lemonade Car Show is sponsored by OMVIC, Ontario's vehicle sales regulator. Lemonade Car Show is sponsored by OMVIC, Ontario's vehicle sales regulator. Welcome back to the Lemonade Car Show, brought to you by OMVIC, Crown and Sound Insurance. I'm your host, Lorraine Sommerfeld. I'm with Iny and Chris Muir. We're going right to the phones because this is so much fun.
Yeah, my name is Keith. I live in Ontario. I recently bought a 2015 Dodge Charger, SXT all-wheel drive. Really like the car, wondering about where I can find some information on maintenance records. I've called one dealer and I was told they will not supply me with what's left to do. I want to make sure I keep it up. Thanks.
Maintenance records on a Charger from 2015. George?
Well, first thing, it's only 4 years old, and on a newer vehicle, required maintenance is not that complicated at this point. It's mainly oil changes, maybe the pollen filter.
Yeah. Modern cars are great insofar as a lot of the subsystems, be it transmission, cooling systems, they're 10-year plus fills on them, right? 160 plus kilometers, 160,000 plus kilometers, I should say, before they need maintenance. So initial maintenance for a car under 100,000 kilometers is very, very low most of the time. As far as acquiring the maintenance records of the vehicle, that can be a bit of a gray area. You should be able to phone the manufacturer and find out any recall information on the vehicle, any warranty claims that have been put through on the vehicle. Now, as far as the maintenance records of the vehicle, that belongs to another consumer and they should have sold it to you with the vehicle. If you've bought it from a private dealer, there may be concerns of disclosing previous records and statements with the previous owner's name on them to you, showing the maintenance records of the vehicle. It could be a huge privacy issue, absolutely.
I would look, though, at the sticker on the vehicle if it identifies who the original selling dealer was. Mm-hmm. It may be that the owner went in for some services there, and if you're a physical person there with the actual car, you might be able to get the information on the history.
Yeah. They may not give you printouts, but they may tell you what's been done.
That's right.
And he's saying he likes the car and he enjoys it. So
well, you have to have it checked before you buy.
Yeah, but I'm figuring the mileage is, if it's within normal for 4 years.
It'll be about 100,000 K, 80 to 100,000 K.
And if it's riding well and you're happy with it.
Well, you need to get it checked.
Yeah.
Right.
Sure.
Well, collision stuff would have been on a CarProof, or you would have known it had been involved in something like that.
And CarProof also might have some of the service actions, because certain large chains are now reporting into CarProof when vehicles are brought in for oil changes and simple services.
Okay, so he should have had a CarProof when it was sold to him because it's required, but if it, for some reason he didn't, he can order that.
Yep.
You can get that now online.
It may have information on the servicing of the vehicles.
You can try that.
And certainly what an inspection would show you is whether you need tires and brakes, because those are the two most likely items that would be up for service. And those, you don't need to see the history. You can check them on the vehicle now.
And the other thing is, if you're unsure of the history of the vehicle, check out what the maintenance schedule calls for and assume that things may not have been done. If it requires an oil change, get the oil change done. Spend a few $100 to even $1,000 maintaining the vehicle, bringing it up to standard. If I buy a vehicle, new fluids all the way around, new set of brakes, I go through it and I make sure that it's up to my standard to last me for years.
Let's go to another question.
Hi, my name is Robert Crawford. I'm from Burlington, Ontario. I was looking at getting an Infiniti G35 Coupe, 2004. This would be my first car, and me and my dad were wondering about what the main maintenance issues and such would be.
2004 Infiniti 35. George.
Robert, buy the book.
Is the 4 in there?
Yeah.
It is.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So, I may have spent a little bit of time with Nissan and by extension Infiniti. This car, for a new driver, for somebody who wants to drive it all year round, I would say is probably not the ideal choice. The 3.5 liters had a small issue with oil consumption, and by small I mean depending on what transmission was mated to it, it can actually be quite a large oil consumption issue. The third gear in the manual transmission had some synchronizer issues with it. The front ends are known to come out of these cars rather rapidly. They are a tight car when they're brand new, and they loosen up and they clunk and they squeak and they rattle. The last concern that I would have as a first car, they are expensive to insure for a seasoned driver. Being a new driver, price out the insurance, because you could put yourself in the poorhouse just by trying to insure a two-door G35.
That's true, because my kids would like that car.
Oh, very much.
A lot of motor. It's basically a 350Z.
It's a rocket.
Oh, God, I like 350Zs. Okay, let me ask you this then. You're telling him, don't, which we hate being the bearer of that kind of news. I'm sorry, I hope your dad's not watching. Or maybe you should be. What's too much to pay for this car?
Well, on a car like that, you buy for condition. You don't buy for price.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
You would buy a little more than the market, but something really well maintained where you can see service and.
Service records are a must on this one. Car proof is another must. I don't know how many of them I saw that had the front ends wrecked on them and were patched back together. They were a very popular car at used car lots. And when we got them in after they were already bought, you'd go over the car and you could tell that they weren't original finishes on the vehicles. So they were popular repaint and resell type of vehicle.
A lot of room for problems.
There's a lot of room for problems on those vehicles.
It's a beautiful car.
A gorgeous car when it
very
works
nice.
properly.
So we understand what your heart is thinking. We just need you to maybe look around a little more. And there are exciting, cool cars out there. You don't have to start with an old minivan like, maybe I did. But even just the insurance issue is going to be, you're right. Good thing to bring up. I didn't even think of that. Usually it's the first thing I think of.
I remember paying those insurance rates. They're not fun.
So that's all the time we have for Lemonade. I want to thank Crown and Sound Insurance and Omvic for their great sponsorship. Thanks to you viewers.